Hey, welcome to another episode of the Dan Lok Show. You know, in business, we always talk about how to get more customers or to get more customers. But today, we're going to talk about how do you turn those customers into super fan, right? They become raving fan for your business. Because you and I both know now, the cost of acquiring customers is getting more and more expensive nowadays. So it's no good just getting customers, but we need to learn how to keep a customer. Today, I have a very, very special guest, award-winning entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and also former Shark Tank contestant. You have seen her on TV. Yes, you have, on Shark Tank. Co-founder of the Superfan company, Brittany Hodak. Brittany, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And thank you. Brittany, I want to talk about your company, the Superfan. The Superfan company. First of all, define for us, what is a Superfan and how did you start that business?
That's a great question. I define a superfan as somebody who over-indexes in their affinity for a brand, customer, item, and anything, right? Somebody who over-indexes in their affinity, something that they love, making them that much more likely to advocate on its behalf as part of their everyday life, right? So somebody who loves your team or your album or your movie so much that they want to talk about it, they want to be a part of it. As you said, I co-founded the Superfan company 8 years ago to help the world's greatest entertainers and brands better understand their customers and create things for those customers to engage with. And I'm on the go right now.
Yes.
Live from an airport lounge in Charlotte, North Carolina. My
yes.
flight was delayed, so thank you for being so accommodating for us to do this sort of on the fly. But I love talking about Superfans, fly all over the world to do it. And like I said, coming to you live from the Charlotte airport after doing it right now.
Awesome. So now when we're talking about superfans, because a lot of companies, corporations, they might think, oh, I just have customers, right? I have users. Like I'm not an entertainer, I'm not a celebrity. How does this apply to me? So talk to us about the importance of like creating, cultivating that super fanship, right, with your audience.
That's a great question. I have people ask that question a lot. They say fans doesn't feel like the right terminology for me, or super fans doesn't feel like the right terminology. Yes. And what I like to say is we're teaching people to take the same psychographic traits that make people be fans in the entertainment world and make those work for your vertical. So you absolutely should have super fans. It doesn't matter if you're an exterminator or an ice cream maker, like whatever it is that you do, there are absolutely people who, as I said, over-index in their affinity. People who say, I will drive the extra mile to come shop with you, or I will go out of my way to be a customer. Those people are your fans. They want to refer other people to you. They have an affinity for what it is that you're doing. So I say don't shy away from the term superfan, lean into the term superfan, because I promise every single small business and medium business owner out there has people that would raise their hands and say, I am a fan of that company.
In some way, we're all in the show business, right? Like people say all the time, right? All business is show business. We're all in the entertainment business. We need the customer's attention, interest in order for them to buy from us and do business with us, right? What's interesting is I noticed, so a lot of companies, they have customers, right? So let's say for someone listening to this, they're entrepreneurs, they're running companies. What do they need to do? What are the steps? And what are some strategies that you teach them to create superfans?
So one strategy that I like to teach is something I call the WAVE method. WAVE, like wave or like a pushing wave.
Like like a concert, right? Yeah. Okay, I get it. Yes.
Or a football game, and you're doing the wave.
You're doing the wave. Yes, I got it.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of great energy around the word wave. It can mean a lot of different things, and usually energy is part of the meaning of the word, right? But I use WAVE as an acronym. It's a little bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you think about the Maslow pyramid, we all know so well. You've got to have the physiological and then the safety, and then it goes up from there, right?
Right.
So I think that super fandom is the same thing. You've got to have a base. So I use the acronym WAVE to help people remember that you've got to make people feel welcomed, appreciated, validated,
and engaged. Okay.
Right? welcomed, appreciated, validated, and engaged for them to become a fan of what you're doing. And just like Maslow, it starts at the bottom. If somebody doesn't feel welcomed, they're not going to feel appreciated. And if they don't feel appreciated, they're not going to feel validated. And if they don't feel validated, they're not going to be engaged. So you've got to do each of these things. You've got to be conscious about taking people up through each one of these levels to get to the point of engagement. And once you've got engaged customers who buy into your why, they buy into what it is that you're doing, you've connected your story to their story in a very tangible way that they understand. Those are the engaged consumers that begin to have a spillover effect, right? They start to make referrals for you. They start to help you get these really highly qualified inbound new customers based on the strength of your brand, based on the strength of the business you've done with them already. So that's one of the methods that I teach people with, to think about making sure that, and a lot of people would say, oh, I would never make a customer feel unwelcome. And you probably consciously wouldn't, right? Like a lot of business people would say, yeah, I would never want to make people feel unwelcome. But I say, well, have you ever maybe posted something on a personal social page or on your blog that you thought was really funny, but maybe to somebody from a different background, like wouldn't be so funny? How do you think that makes them feel? It doesn't make them feel welcome, right? And the same thing with appreciation. You know, I think we've all been in situations before where we haven't felt appreciated by a business, right? Commodities are notorious for this, and utilities are notorious for this, about making people feel like they're just one of a million people, right? Like, I don't appreciate you as a customer. Validation, again, there's an amazing quote from Oprah on the power of validation. She says she's interviewed over 30,000 people, and every single one of them has been looking for that exact same thing, and that's validation. They want to know, I hear you, I feel you, what you're saying matters to me. It's a great quote from Oprah. No, I can't take credit for that. But validation. And then the E is for engaged. If you do these things and you build it up correctly and you give people a platform to engage with your brand, they absolutely will. And that's sort of the basic of how you start to go about creating a superfan strategy.
And how does that tie to, let's say, social media? Because I know you work with a lot of different companies, you do keynote. A lot of companies, even now, they're still very corporate, very like faceless, right? That here's my product, you buy my product, and that's it. But there's no story. You know, I definitely want to ask you the next question about how storytelling ties into all this. But how does the concept of superfan, how does that tie to social media? And in terms of bigger company who they have a brand, they have a logo, that doesn't have a ton of emotions around that, and that doesn't create superfans. Like, what's your take on that?
Well, first, I would challenge you to say that just because you have a logo, you don't have a brand.
That's right.
Like, you might have a business, but a logo does not make a brand. And I think 100%. That's one of the principles of marketing that a lot of people get wrong. And they think, oh, I'm doing enough. So I would say you perhaps don't have a brand if you don't have a personality on social media, because people buy from people, right? People don't buy from companies. People buy from people, and people want stories that they connect with. So if your business isn't relating to people in a very personal way, perhaps you don't have as strong a brand as you think you do. And perhaps those people might be a little bit more likely to try a competitor than you think they are. You might not have them as blocked as you think you do. And, you know, social media is one of those tricky things. I'm somebody who's not like super active on social media. You know, I do a little bit here and there, but my core customers all know how to get in touch with me. Like I'm more likely to like text stuff to a customer than I am to put stuff on social media, just because it's not something that I love to do. So I don't prioritize it, which I should probably work on, right? Like it's something that perhaps I should do more, not perhaps, definitely I should do more of. But people say to me all the time, you know, I just came from an event. I just was speaking at Engage Marketing here in Charlotte, which is an incredible conference for mortgage professionals. And a loan originator said, hey, please don't tell me that I need to put pictures of my kids on Instagram. I hear that all the time that, oh, if I want to connect with people in my local market, I've got to put pictures of my family on Instagram, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. And I said, then you absolutely shouldn't. Like, you should never do anything on social media or anywhere else that doesn't feel authentic to you. Because 100%. If you're just doing something because you think it's the right thing to do, you're probably never going to be that successful at it. Because
and people see through that anyway. It's not authentic.
Right. It's going to come off as inauthentic. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And in my mind, like I say the same thing. Like people buy from people, right? Where you don't want just a transactional relationship, right? You buy something, you sell something, and that's it. We want a transformational relationship. Now it's the beginning of a relationship where, okay, now we've done business, you enjoy the experience, you enjoy the product, and now how do we cultivate that relationship and take it to the next level, right? And that's how you get all the referrals, and that's how you have all the customers coming back and buy more from you again and again, right? So I know it sounds such a basic concept, but I agree with you. Most companies, you don't think about it. And I think you brought a very, very important point. I want to make sure that our listeners get this. It's about competitor, right? Prove your business. Because in terms of, let's say take what I do. Let's say in terms of teaching sales and closing, how many people teach sales? How many people teach closing? How many books are out there on Amazon, right? But how many people who teaches closing, who maybe is an Iron Man fan, who is a Bruce Lee fan, who has my immigrant story, then there's only one. Because exactly. Right?
You're uncopyable.
Right? And that's actually what gives you the edge in the marketplace. So Brittany, what about storytelling? So in terms of, so I'm an entrepreneur, I want to create more super fans. What do you recommend? So I want to kind of get my name out there more. I want to build my brand more. Like, what's some of the stories that I should share with my audience to create that connection?
So there's not one stock answer because everybody is different. Every entrepreneur is different. Every company is different. And what I always say is the most important story isn't yours. The most important story is that of your potential customer, right? So your job is to figure out the points of intersection between your story and their story. Where is that like in the Venn diagram, like that circle in the middle? That's what you're trying to get to is the overlap. So it's probably not one story that you're going to be telling as an entrepreneur. It may be a collection of, 5 or 6 or 8 different stories that have some overlapping themes, but you're going to tell a different story based on the audience because you want to connect with them, right? So you're looking for points of commonality. You're looking for things that you have in common. As people, we inherently like people who we perceive to be like us more because it's like a safety thing, right? It's like a physiological, like, oh, I have something in common with that person. And if we like it, we get that little shot of dopamine or whatever it is to our brain. So that's what you're trying to do. You're looking for points of connection. So if you're just telling the same story out there to everybody, you're not going to connect as well as you can. It's just like, a restaurant that has one thing on the menu. Like, maybe I'll go there when I want mac and cheese because they have great mac and cheese. But if I want more people to come more on a more regular basis, I've got to have more than one thing on the menu.
Right. And how has that shift in terms of when you work with companies that they do just advertising, to do traditional marketing? How does the concept of superfan, like how do they integrate this in terms of, okay, so storytelling, being more on social media, okay, they get that. Well, what else could they do?
So, it's really the first thing that I always tell companies to do is figure out who your ideal customer avatar is. Like, who is it that you want to be the super fan? Because you're never going to get everybody, right? And that's something a lot of people like to say, oh, I have a product that applies to everyone. Well, if you have a product that applies to everyone, you're never going to be the best to anyone, right? Like you can do anything, but you can't do everything. I don't know who said that, but I think that's like the best saying ever. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. So the first thing you got to do is figure out who it is that you're uniquely qualified to serve in a really fantastic way. And then once you've got that avatar in place, that's when you can start doing the groundwork to figure out how you're going to make these customers feel, like I was talking about before, welcomed, appreciated, validated, engaged. What does your superfan strategy look like?
That makes sense. I love the way because it's so easy to remember, right? And welcoming, I think, is also sometimes, like you said, where the welcome is not just, hey, it's more after even they've done business with you, or the minute they've done business with you, do they feel ignored? Because sometimes we buy for business. It's like, now after I pay them the money, like, that's it. You don't hear from them again. There's no thank you. There's nothing, right?
Yeah, people don't have a strategy for after the click, or they think they have a strategy for after the click, but it's really just to follow up when they want something, right? Like they want a referral, or they want a review, or they want something else. And like, we've all got that friend who only reaches out when they need something.
That's
like,
right.
Don't be that person. Don't be the person who only reaches out to your customers when you need something from them, because that's not how you build a relationship. That's how you build, a very like one way.
And we all know that friend calls you, say, okay, what do you want? Right? You know that if just tell me exactly what you want. Like let's cut the BS, right? It's always that kind of relationship. And you don't want to spend time with that person, right? You want to hang out with that person. It's exactly like that. What about in terms of, does this apply just for the service business, or does this also apply for product business?
This certainly applies to the product business as well. This applies to anybody who wants to get referrals. And certainly product and service businesses are different. And it also depends on, the cost point of the product that you're looking to sell. But certainly this is applicable to everyone, because as you said before, the cost of acquiring a customer is typically so much higher than the cost of keeping a customer, especially if that customer is referring new customers to you.
And customers, they have now so many more choices. It's nothing new, like, unless you have some breakthrough technology. But for most of us, there's nothing new under the sun, right? Like, they can buy this product from you. They can probably have like 10, 20 other choices. You could argue, your product is better and you've been in business longer and all these things. But at the end of the day, people have a lot of choices. Right? It's good and bad. Right, it's good and bad. Right? When you do have more choices, then it forces all of us to elevate our game to be better, right?
Exactly, yeah. And that's going to continue to be the story, right? Like, we live in an age of technology. We live in a world where everyone is forced to up their game constantly just to compete. And that's, I saw a really great stat the other day in a Forbes article. It said the cost of people switching businesses is $75 billion a year. $75 billion is lost from people switching from one company to another because of poor customer service. And 67% of people in that same study said that they had switched companies within the past year because of a poor customer service experience.
Oh, wow.
$75 billion, right? And 2/3 of people who say, if I have a bad experience, I'm going to switch. Like, that's the high stakes, right? Like, we're at a point where, again, it's like great customer service is no longer, something that's nice to have. Like, it's the cost of entry.
And we've talked about like what to do. Can you give us maybe one big idea about what not to do? Like, what is one thing that you see a lot of companies do and entrepreneurs, the mistake that they make, like the number one in terms of like, not like opposite, not creating that super fan, right?
I would say not treating your customer like an individual and not making them feel appreciated and validated. So, like, we've all had the experience of, calling into a call center, and call centers are kind of like notorious for some of this. And it's a tough job, right? Like, it's a tough job, customer service on the phone. But one thing that when I talk about validated, making people feel validated, one default that a lot of companies go to is they say, oh, well, we've never had this complaint before. Or, oh, this has never happened before. We haven't heard this before. And I always say, imagine if you were in a relationship. Like, imagine if you went to your spouse and you said, or somebody you're dating, to make it not like such a crazy example, but like, you're dating somebody and you say, I feel like you're having an affair and here's all the evidence I had. If that person said back to you, I've dated lots of people and none of them have ever come to me with an accusation. Like, how is that going to fly? Like, do you care in that moment? Is it relevant at all what the other person's experience has ever been? Of course not. All you care about is you. But customers hear this all the time from companies, right? Like, they call and they say, I have this complaint, which is a very, it's very relevant to me. It's very important to me. It's very real to me. And for a customer service rep to come back and say like, oh, well, we've never had anybody talk about this before. Like, that's the craziest thing to say. So I would say don't ever try to diffuse a situation by comparing somebody's experience to somebody else's. Also, don't ever try to diffuse it by making them feel like
they're wrong.
The problem, right? Yeah, like they're wrong. Like, again, we've all heard the old idiom, the customer is always right, which I don't, for the record, believe that to be the case. I do not think the customer is always right, but I do think the customer should always be treated with respect, because we live in a world where like anything can go viral at any second. Yeah. And I think a very important point is, when most of the time your customers, even a customer complaining, most of the time, from my experience, sometimes they just want someone to listen to their problems. they want to feel validated.
Right? Yeah, like they're like, well, maybe it's not your fault, but listen to what I'm going through, right? And sometimes I notice when you ask them some questions, like, you know what, maybe it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times that's really an opportunity for you to gain a super fan, right? Like if you have somebody who can handle that correctly, who can make somebody feel welcomed, appreciated, validated, engaged, you now have the opportunity to take something that was a bad situation and have them say, you know what, I understand everybody messes up, companies mess up, this company acknowledged it. Like if you're ever on the receiving end of that, the first important thing to do is acknowledge it, to say, I'm sorry, and here's what I'm going to do to make it better. Please give me an opportunity to do a better job. You're important to me. Your business is important to me. And I want this relationship to continue. And if you do those things, most of the time, people are going to forgive you and give you another shot. Because again, people do business with people. We like to have relationships with people, not like a person to company thing. So if you can be that face, if you can say, you know what, we messed up. I'm sorry. Here's what we're going to do and give it another shot. I would say 8 times out of 10, at least, you'll find that people are willing to give you another chance.
And Brittany,
but you've got to like put your money where your mouth is. You've got to try to make it right. Like,
don't just say it. You got to mean it, right?
You've got to make an effort. Yeah, you've got to put that effort in.
Like from your experience, like which personality brand or even which company you work with that you think that they've got this right? Like they know how to create super fans. Like you're just like, wow, he or she or that company is really, really awesome.
You know, probably the best company that I've seen in the past couple of years doing this is the pet company Chewy.
Okay.
Chewy.
Yes.
I don't work with Chewy. I would love to work with Chewy. They're an absolutely incredible brand. But I was completely unfamiliar with Chewy because I didn't have pets. And I adopted 2 rescue dogs. And one of them was having tummy trouble and needed prescription dog food, which I didn't even know was a thing. But my vet was like, you got to get this special dog food. I searched online. I saw that Chewy had it. I had to like send an authorization, right? Like the prescription. So I placed the order. I sent a note and said, you know, hey, attached, please find the prescription for this order number. Thanks. Thinking that was it. I immediately got an email back from the customer service rep mentioning my dog by name. She said, thank you so much for sending Bear's prescription. And it was such a fun note. It was something like, if you ever need a helping paw.
Oh, so there's a lot of personality. Yeah. Okay. I like that. Right? Yes.
But so total brand personality, which costs, by the way, $0.
Yes.
It does not cost anything extra to have people who are trained to speak in your brand voice, right? That makes a huge impression. But the other thing that she did that was so fantastic, she mentioned my name. She mentioned my dog's name, Bear. Like she didn't just say like, we got the prescription or we got this for your order. She said, thanks for sending Bear's prescription. So she immediately humanized, you know, herself and made me feel like my dog matters to this company. Chewy cares about my dog Bear. So I wrote a quick note back and was like, her name was Kelly. I was like, Kelly, thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'll look forward to getting this. And so will Bear. And she, again, immediately wrote back and she said, you know, you're our VIPs, which is very important, pause, right, to Bear. And she said, we love all of the members of our Chewy family. And I was like, wow, I'm part of the family. This is awesome. So anyway, I had this email conversation back and forth with this woman, Kelly, a customer service rep who, you know, I'd never met. And she immediately took me, I like to talk about something I call the 4 A's of super fandom, which we can go through them if you want, but it's awareness, action, affinity, and advocacy. And everybody starts, awareness is like when people care about your brand for the first time, like they've identified with your why. And then apathy is the fourth, or excuse me, advocacy is the fourth one. That's where people love what you're doing and
they tell other people about it. Yes.
And that exactly. And that's, she was able to take me in the course of about 3 emails from somebody who was like, oh, you know, Chewy.
We'll try the product.
I love Chewy. They're absolutely the best.
Well, just like now you're talking about Chewy in front of like a huge audience right there. That's being an advocate, right?
Anybody who has pets, absolutely check it out. Yeah. And by the way, Chewy had like the largest acquisition of any e-commerce company. It was like $3 billion or something crazy. I'm sorry, I don't have the true stats in front of me. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but yeah, they were bought by PetSmart for like $3 billion because they did a better job at customer service. Like they got it right? They have, when you buy something from Drew for the first time, you get a handwritten note or postcard in the mail, like from an actual person. It's not faked. And I always say, like, you can't CRM your way to superfans. You can't automate your way to having superfans. You can get close, right? Like with these 4 A's, you can automate awareness. You can automate action. To some point, you can like maybe automate affinity. Like you can get people like right to that line. But when you want to get past affinity and advocacy, that's the human touch, right? Yeah. Because people buy from people. Like you say all the time, people want to buy from people. It's about the stories. It's about the human touch, the human nature. And you can't CRM that away yet. Maybe you can in, 15, 20, 25 years from now, whatever. But for now, that's still the most important element. And if you're going to create a culture of super fandom, you have absolutely got to have that human touch.
And there's no doubt in my mind if the people probably Kelly also it's a pet lover, is a dog lover. I bet they only hire people who are dog. I don't know enough, but that's what creates the culture, right? That's how it is. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think, and the timing. One thing I think one good point is the timing of it. At the time when Bear needs the prescription, you as a pet owner, you're probably worried, right? You're a little bit, I don't know, right? So someone who's like giving you that acknowledging, hey, don't worry, the prescription is like it's all of that, plus in a fun kind of it lightens the mood a bit, right? Like say, oh, this is good. I'm in good hands, right? It makes you feel very comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so powerful. Brittany, if my audience, they want to find out more about what you do, they want to connect with you, maybe on social, on website, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, they can find me at BrittanyHodak.com. BrittanyHodak.com, and I'm Brittany Hodak on all the social platforms.
Perfect. Brittany, thank you so much. I know you got to catch a flight. Thank you so much. In the future, love to have you back. We can talk more about this. I mean, I love this concept of like superfan because I'm a huge believer in that. That's what we do.
Thank you so much, Dan, and thank you again for not minding this beautiful backdrop of this room in the Charlotte airport. But I'm such a huge fan of you and the show and everything you're doing, and I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me on. And I'm so excited to check out the new book. When can I get my hands on a copy?
I'll send you a copy. I'll send you a copy.
I can't wait to read it. I know
it's
going to be absolutely incredible. I'm a super fan of it already, just from what I know of your work.
You've already built a thriving business, but the question is, how do you scale fast without burning out? How do you transition out of the day-to-day operations so you can make more profits and have more time and freedom? The answer is not some magical software that makes your life easier, and it's not hoping you could outsource all these problems to some agencies. If you want to know the secrets of how the top 0.1% entrepreneurs create high-performing and self-managed teams, join us for our upcoming SMART Challenge. Click the link below to secure your seat today.